You would think the matchers would be successful, and in a lot of cases they are, but the thing that the matchers have in common is that everybody who conducts business with them knows that they're transactional. And so as a result, people don't go out of their way for the matchers as they would for the givers. The reason that the givers are most successful in business is that they are seen as people who go out of their way to help others. So when they actually do have needs, others go out of their way to help them. Whereas with the matchers, I'm sure you've met plenty, I've met plenty too, where, there's always a quid pro quo, and you feel a little more hesitant about going to a matcher and saying, I need some help, because you know that there's going to be a comeback at some point, and you don't know what that's going to be. So people are a little more hesitant with the matchers, and that's why they're not as successful in business. It comes down to a theory that I learned from Reid Hoffman, who was the founder of LinkedIn. And he has this theory about the favor economy, he calls it, where he says if one person can do a favor for another person, and that favor doesn't take a lot of time, but it makes a big difference to the other person, you can get a very good economic return on the time. And so I watched as Reid did this over and over again with other people. He did things for people where there was really not much in it for him, but he spent a little bit of time, and it was something that made a big difference for the other person. And over time, I came to refine that idea as the favor economy, where it doesn't cost you money, it just costs you time. And if you can do something for somebody that only takes a little bit of time but makes a big difference, that's worth doing. I think the golden rule really taps into the same essence of it, which is, give what you can with what you have, wherever you are. And, no matter where you are in life, there's things that you can give. I think it's very important as an entrepreneur not to be too heads down and not to be too inward looking, because business, just like life, involves interacting with other people. And this is something that connects us all. In the favor economy, clearly some favors take a very long time. But the one thing I've come to realize in being in startups for 15 years is that everybody is super busy. And so the question was, well, how could you make it a little bit easier to do a favor that would make a big difference to somebody, but not be a burden to the person giving the favor, because most people are super busy. And the concept was, well, what if we made it so that the favor took less than 5 minutes to do? Suddenly that doesn't seem like a huge burden, and it seems like you could make room for that at some point during your day when you're taking a break. And so by observing what people were actually doing, came up with the concept of, we don't have to teach people how to do a 5-minute favor. This is actually what they're doing already. If the favor took more than 5 minutes, then suddenly it was less of a chance of it getting done. Whereas if it took 5 minutes or less, there's a really good chance that it would get done. And we saw all kinds of people, I've seen all kinds of people help people they don't even know, because it only took them a few minutes to do it. So probably the most common 5-minute favor I've seen is an introduction. And that is, I know somebody who could be of value to somebody else, and I'll introduce the two of them. And as it turns out, usually each of them gets something out of that relationship. So by making the introduction, it's mutually beneficial. The time that it takes me to look up their LinkedIn profiles and include links to it, as well as write up the email, almost always takes me 2 or 3 minutes, much less than 5. And so I'm willing to do that. It's something that I try to do at least once every day, is make an introduction between two people I know. The goal was really education. And unlike a structured classroom, it was education by people learning from each other. And so to that end, it's been very successful. Literally thousands of people have now come to 1 to 6 Miles events and learn from other people there. And what's great is that it's both a give and take. Some people come to learn, but then they're surprised by the fact that they actually have things that they can teach other people too. So it's much more of a network where people are willing to share what they know, as well as share connections to help each other. And so, what we talked about earlier about the favor economy and willingness to do things for each other, the network is that network. 1 to 6 Miles is a very good embodiment of that favor economy. And so, I'm very proud of that. It started as an offline, not necessarily a meetup. We actually had an Evite, if you can believe it. And we would invite a few people. It started off with just a handful of people, really. And we'd meet once a month. And we'd have a topic of the evening. For example, how can we think about getting a lawyer, or what accounting things are really important for a startup early on. So every topic was based on something that would be of interest to anybody who was starting a company. Usually we'd have a guest or two who had done it before, and they could offer their perspective. And so there was an ability to learn and ask them questions. And so for the first few years of 106 Miles, that was really the format. It was more roundtable. It started off at, just about 10, 15 people. But by the time, 2008 came along, it was more like 40 people per session. And that's when we realized it had a lot wider appeal than just, the group assembling around the round table, and we changed the format. And the format became much more meetup-like after that, where instead of it being around a central theme and having everybody talk to one person, it was more lots of people met and could ask each other questions one-on-one. And so the meetups grew from about 40 people per session to between 100 and 200 per session. And for the last 5 years, that's been really the format, is that meetup style with hundreds of people that come and learn from each other. And it still goes on every month. We do it once a month in Palo Alto, once a month in San Francisco, and then occasionally we do it in Southern California as well, because there's a huge startup community in Southern California. The name 106 Miles comes from the Blues Brothers. There's a scene where John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd are in a car, and they're 106 miles from Chicago. It's dark, and they're wearing sunglasses, and they have to get to Chicago before they run out of gas, or cigarettes for that matter. And so we thought of that as a very good analogy for what it's like to be an entrepreneur, where it's dark, you're wearing sunglasses, and you have to get to the destination before you run out of gas or cigarettes.